This is Noah John Pedler. This is Bifida Blog. So as you just seen, baby Noah is here. We're really pleased to announce he was born at 10:27 last night, as you would have seen on yesterday's blog. A lot has gone on, which is why we're doing this now. We're just going to go and catch up on a few things because a lot happened and a lot didn't get recorded because it was so busy. So we're going to talk about the birth story, and I'm probably not the best one to talk about it, to be fair. So I'm going to hand over to Louise to probably talk about it a bit more.
So as Stuart mentioned yesterday, we had the pessary put in at 4:20 p.m. Went in fine. 10 minutes later, agony. All in like my pelvis and lower back, but it wasn't contractions, it was just constant pain. You couldn't get comfy on the bed, you couldn't, standing up hurt, sitting down hurt, there was just no way of finding any kind of comfort. I spoke to the midwives about it and said, is it starting or what's happening? They said that it's very unlikely that it would have been starting that soon, but it could be my body sort of like having a hyperstimulating to the pessary. So they recommended that I had a bath and offered me paracetamol-based drugs, which I thought was a bit of a joke, to be fair. But
didn't really cut it, did it?
No, didn't touch it. So I had a bath and it was an uncomfortable bath. It maybe helped initially, slightly, but not a great deal.
You got rid of an extra 15 minutes, didn't it?
Yeah, it was just counting down till they would check me at 8:20. About 9:25, they put the monitors back on to see whether I was having contractions or whether it was just my body hyperstimulating. And whilst they were doing that, Noah's heart rate dropped. For how long was it? I think it was only a minute or two.
It wasn't very long.
It wasn't anything major, but because of that, they just said that they would move me down to delivery suite and break my waters. And I was just like, yes, gas and air. They'll give me gas and air when I get down there, which is what I wanted pretty much since the second the pessary went in. When we got down to delivery suite, they checked to see how dilated I was. About 2 to 3 centimetres, but my cervix was now central and stretchy rather than long and really far back. So they went on to break my waters. Didn't have a great deal of water in front of Noah's head, so it wasn't like a big gush or anything like that, it was just a little trickle. Contractions started straight away. I got my gas and air and felt, yes, I can actually do this now. The contractions came quite hot, sweet and not strong. I was coping with them. 7 minutes later I was fully dilated. So I said I felt like I needed to push already. And I think we were both sort of like, surely we can't be ready to push already, but I knew I was ready to push. So you called the midwife back in because she'd just left the room. She came back and was like, oh, don't push, I need to check that, you are ready. And I was like, well, I'm telling you I'm ready. And she checked and I was fully dilated. About 3 pushes to get Noah's head out, and one more push and there he was, between my legs. And it was just amazing, after such a horrendous first part with the pessary, to then go on to have it was lovely birth, and I got a good look at him before they took him off to stabilise him. He was a bit shell-shocked, probably because all of a sudden he was 1 minute really comfy inside and then the next minute he was here.
So after the birth, the placenta was delivered as normal, fully complete, no issues there. Following that though, the bleeding sort of continued for a little bit. Not concerned, they were very good in there, but the bleeding just wouldn't stop. It kept going. They couldn't quite make it stop. So you soon enough got carted off to go to theatre to have it looked at and see what the issue was. By that point, you were probably had lost about 2 litres of blood.
Yeah.
So
we've been pulling all sorts of clots and whatnot out.
Clots and whatnot out. So
I was high on my gas and air, so I was quite happy. I wouldn't say I was scared as such, but obviously when you're there and they can't stop the bleeding, you're like, oh no, surely I'm going to sort of like conk out eventually. So before I went off to theatre, I was like, oh, I love you and I love Heidi and I love Noah, just because you hear so many horror stories, you just don't know. But they did take good care of me. We went down, there must have been about 15 or more people surrounding me, poking all sorts of different wires and whatnot, preparing me for surgery. But before I knew it, I was awake again and back with you. So.
Yeah. So basically, you've been on maternity unit, recovering ever since. And here's a little bit of footage of what happened when you got back initially. A lot of talking went on. We didn't get much rest that night, quite obviously. You were quite keen to talk despite having been under anaesthetic.
Verbal diarrhea.
Yeah. I didn't get to record much, but here's a little bit.
He's stable and he's breathing by himself, which is more than they expect.
Well, yeah, because they were like, oh yeah, we'll have to be fitted on a ventilator and...
When he was in here.
Yeah, no, he's still doing this little thing. I mean, not much. He was fairly content. He just, when he did a little move, he did a little...
Like 6 midwives also kept telling me what was happening. Anaesthetists and people trying to get all these fancy terms from me.
Following all the blood loss, you were brought back to the delivery suite, and basically now it's a case of trying to get your blood levels back up. Amazingly, despite losing almost 3 litres of blood, which we now know, you didn't have any blood products put into you, did you? So basically the iron count was so high that they feel that what she's lost isn't as significant as someone who maybe didn't have that high count. So basically it's fluids and anything else they can do to iron tablets just to try and get that blood count back up. Still a little bit pale, but getting your colour back. So, in respect to Noah, well, he got taken off pretty quickly, as you'd expect, given the situation. You did briefly see him, didn't you, when he popped out, which was nice for you to actually see him. I saw him too, very briefly, but they did take him away quite quickly onto the little unit
just
they have
to
stabilise him, and it was quite a while before we heard him actually make a noise of any sort, which you try not to worry, but of course you sort of got that niggle until you hear something. It's a very reassuring thing to hear something, and eventually he did.
It sounded like a little cat purr.
Yeah, it wasn't very much, but he did give us something, and that was a big relief to sort of hear that, and just to hear he was okay. After that, he got taken up to neonatal, and as I explained yesterday, he was stabilised and he was stable himself, breathing by himself, and actually doing quite well. I left you on a bit of tenterhooks last night, leaving you just before midnight. Shortly after, you saying 1 o'clock maybe, I went up to see him for the first time in his little unit on the neonatal intensive care unit, which was great. Unfortunately, I couldn't take Louise with me, which was a big thing really for me to not have you there.
I think you felt bad, didn't you?
I felt bad.
I just wanted no one to see somebody.
Which, I took in the end. I was going to wait for Louise, whatever. But it was great, and we've got a couple of pictures. So after that initial visit, I came back down to Louise and stayed with her, obviously, and then I did later go back up again about 7 o'clock and had the first cuddle, which again I feel a bit bad for, but it was lovely to get a cuddle with him. Still a little bit careful with him. I still feel like I'm going to break him or the cables that are attached to him. But it was lovely to get a cuddle with him, and again we've got some more pictures.
I really wanted Stuart to go up and hold him. Again, for the same reason that I wanted somebody that he knew to be there and to have held him. I didn't go up until about 2 o'clock in the following afternoon, so good 16 hours after he was born. But I too got to hold him then, which was very special.
Yeah, you were still in your, you were still in like a wheelchair at that point, because you were still finding it hard to move around and lightheaded.
Still not very comfortable by that point, but
clearly,
definitely worth the effort.
Yeah, the blood loss at that point was still causing you to be quite nauseous when you were sort of getting up and quite lightheaded.
There we go.
The cables.
Oh, thank you. That's great, thank you.
After the initial visit, Louise went back down again just to try and relax and just settle in a bit more. I think the name of the game is just relaxing and getting the fluids in and rest, really, getting her body back to full health. So I went back up to see Noah at 5 p.m. again, just to see how he was getting on. Not with Louise this time, but it was just nice to catch up. And by that point, he was a bit more, even more settled in, and it was good to sort of catch up with how he was getting on.
Hello, Noah. Hello. There you go. You're tired, little man. Getting ready for your big day tomorrow.
Shortly after I went up, I came back down for another reason. We got the form for the Tots house, so hopefully we can find a place there for when Louise is finally discharged. That'd be great. I came down to get it signed, and only to find Louise being moved out of maternity ward, and she was being moved upstairs into one of the wards in the same actual ward that we were getting induced on,
but
not the same room, the other side, crucially, in a different room. So no ugly reminders of those 5 hours the day before. And really, the rest of that evening was a case of just getting you settled. Drugs and checks and really then checking her into the new ward. I quickly got a chance to pop out, just do a little bit of food shopping, which was nice to get out, but it was a bit cold.
Then by 10 o'clock I was finally finished having everything done and feeling up to going up to see him again before they settled him down for the night. So we went up, and again he's just such a content little boy, really. He was just lying there quite happily sleeping. So we didn't drag him out of his cot, we didn't want to disturb him, but it was nice to just sit and pray with him and spend some time with him, really.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Noah, you gonna make a noise for me? Say hello, everybody. I'm Noah.
So we finished today with Louise on a new ward, just recovering. I've actually got a bed here for tonight. They've arranged it for me to sleep here, which is what we're sat on. Noah is resting up in the neonatal intensive care unit, preparing himself for surgery tomorrow morning at some point. And basically the issues are as we expected, really. The surgery tomorrow should include the back closure, and which should be fairly standard, but then a bit.
Plastics are getting involved.
Yeah, the plastics are getting involved just because there's not so much skin there, because of the way it's more into him.
A pit.
The pit into him, as opposed to like a bulge or bag out of him. So they haven't got as much maybe to work with, but they might end up taking some off other parts of the tummy area or parts of the body. But we'll see what happens.
So tomorrow's the big day, so we'll keep you up to date with how the surgery goes and see you tomorrow, really.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Gas now.
And saw no.
Noah. He
Yeah.
keeps calling him Nola.
Yeah.